Welcome to Culture Binge, where we feast on everything going on in the zeitgeist and digest it for you, our listeners. This is the episode for the week of June 17th. My name is Jared, and joined with me are my two co-hosts. We got Alec.
Hey.
And Surbhi.
Hi.
So, want to let you guys know a couple things. One, if you heard me before, we are testing some new software to make this live stream thing go a little bit more smoothly. So if we have any hiccups, I apologize. Thank you for your patience. Secondly, we are planning on doing these on Wednesdays around noon or 12:30. I was actually filming Earthling Cinema on Wednesday, so we did not get a chance to do it then. So we're doing it here on Friday. But anyway,
Pacific time.
Say again? Oh, yes.
Pacific time.
Pacific time, excuse me. So anyway, I want to let you guys know about the topics that we're going to be discussing today. We're going to be talking about a new Taco Bell resort, and I'm going to be using that to talk about the greater state of irony in society. Surbhi's going to be talking about how some restaurants are chafing against Yelp and asking for 1-star ratings. Alec is going to talk about his favorite topic, anti-vaxxers. Second favorite behind Flat Earth. I'm going to be talking about the death of comedy at the box office. Surbhi's got some stuff to say about online dating. And then if we have time, Alec is going to talk about mindfulness. But as always, we're going to start with our favorite segment, Slaps and Chaps. This is what's going on in your life that's awesome, what's going in your life that sucks. Let's start with Alec this week.
Yeah. All right. So what slaps is, this might be a weird choice, but it's a video. I guess maybe it chaffs some people, but can we play that, Tim, or whoever's in the booth?
Welcome to C by GE's Smart Tips. We're going to show you how to factory reset your C by GE.
This is real, by the way.
Which will unpair your bulb
from
other devices and apps that it's connected to. There are 2 factory reset processes, which depend on the generation of bulbs and the firmware you're running on. Here's the first process, designed for bulbs with this package, or for firmware version 2.8 or later. Start with your bulb off for at least 5 seconds. Then, turn on the bulb for 8 seconds.
This is so frustrating.
Turn off for 2 seconds. Turn on for 8 seconds.
Oh my god, this is so annoying.
Turn off for 2 seconds. Turn on for 8 seconds.
How long are we going to watch this?
It keeps going forever and ever and ever.
Alec, why is this going viral?
Because, well, first it's bad design. It seems like it's like one of those Family Guy jokes where they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Like the first time I saw it, I was watching along. I was like, oh, this is kind of oh my god, it keeps going. And then when you think it's done, it keeps going. So it's like a cruel joke out of possibly the movie Brazil. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it seems ridiculously tedious for no apparent reason. And it was one of those things I'm watching and I'm like, is this a joke? No, it's not. Because obviously there's not a good enough punchline if it was a joke. But also, I think you sent it to me earlier saying, oh my God, you have to see this. And I was expecting something a little bit more of a payoff. I don't know. And I was like, yeah, that's tedious. And I certainly wouldn't want to do that.
It's almost Sisyphusian.
Yeah, it is. So when you sent this yesterday, I watched it and I was so angry. And this is actually, I was so mad, actually. Like, I didn't know how much time I had wasted. Those are minutes of my life I'll never get back.
So yeah, it's kind of a combo slap and chaff, or chap, sorry. But my actual chap is Facebook launching their cryptocurrency, which isn't even a cryptocurrency. Are you all familiar with Libra?
I heard about the announcement.
So for a brief primer, usually cryptocurrencies are currencies that are built on a blockchain, which is all these like computers solving formulas, and there's a ledger and all this shit. And it's entirely, I want to say, like theoretical, not theoretical, but there's nothing backing Bitcoin, for instance. But this, unlike a cryptocurrency, will have like actual assets, so like actual gold or bonds or cash in a bank somewhere sitting for every, $V-buck that Facebook pays out. But also the big promise of cryptocurrencies is they're decentralized, but this is being run by Facebook and a few other companies. So it just seems like a way for them to steal all the information that credit card companies usually steal from us, but it's Facebook, so it angers me a little bit more.
And they're actually calling it a cryptocurrency, but there's no crypto element to it. It's just a currency.
There might be like weird technical things about how it's done that is like crypto. Some person more informed about cryptocurrency would have to speak to that. But they describe it as essentially being like Venmo. For the user, it seems like they're just using Venmo or something like that. They're not even aware of the cryptoness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even trust them with my date of birth. Never mind an actual currency. So this is all very dystopian, and I think I told Alec this. Every time I just look at Zuckerberg, I get anxious. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Anything that has to do with Facebook, I'm not super interested in. And actually, like, I think they bought WhatsApp. So I've been thinking about not using WhatsApp anymore. So anything to do with Facebook, I don't trust.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Fair. All right, Surbhi, what slaps and chaps in your life?
So what chaps is Alec's light bulb video. I've been really annoyed about that. And then having to sit through and watch it again has just made me 3 degrees more annoyed. And then what's going really well. So I watched Chernobyl after Jared, you recommended it a couple weeks ago. And I've only gone through the first episode, and the sound and the music is so good that I'm anxious and nervous the entire time. I've never seen something where the sound and the music do such a great job, like setting the tone. Or maybe I just haven't paid enough attention before.
Oh, cool. So you're excited to watch the other episodes?
I am. I get really squeamish though when they show like what happens to the people's bodies. So I like look away, and then I'm like, oh no, I should look. Oh no. So I will get through the rest of them, but I have to watch them when I'm not already anxious at baseline because it'll just put me over the top.
Yeah, people love it. All right, so for slaps for me, got some deep nerd shit here. I bought Divinity 2 Original Sin for only $20 on the PlayStation Store, and it's pretty fun. What is
that game?
It's a isometric RPG that came out a long time ago, and it's one of those games that you can sink hundreds of hours into. And it's also multiplayer, so I can play it with my girlfriend. So that's been cool. I also recently rewatched Legend of Drunken Master, the 1994 Jackie Chan movie, and I love Jackie Chan. To me, Jackie Chan is up there with Scorsese and Kubrick as like just top shelf auteur. He's so good.
Wow.
In some of those scenes, it almost brings me to tears. He is amazing. As far as what chaps, this is kind of a weird chaps. So I got a book that I ordered on Amazon yesterday, and I opened the first page, and it said, this book was printed basically the day after I ordered it, which was, and I knew they were doing that. I knew they were doing print on demand, but in that moment, I saw kind of around the corner into the future where not only are they going to print it on demand, but soon content is going to be written and printed for you on demand. So I can just see a future where they use all my data to quickly, within seconds, write a book to my taste and print it and send it to me the next day. So that kind of freaked me out. But then I was like, well, if my data creates the great American novel, who gets the credit? The algorithm? Me? Both? I don't know.
Oh, you're not going to get any of the credit.
Well, I mean, not like the financial credit, but just who is it by? Who writes the book? I mean, it's the algorithm, but it's also me in my internet activity.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You get nothing. Oh, although this does remind me of, like, you know, when you get your blood taken or like tissue samples taken, health organizations can take your DNA and like create cures and things like that, and you don't own any of that. So it's the researchers and the doctors who get all the credit.
This happens with like 23andMe too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, everyone's stealing your genetic data and you're getting no money for it.
Well, this is also part of the universal basic income thing. I'm actually taking this talking point from Jacob because I was talking about it with him yesterday, but all these things that your data is creating, you are completely alienated from any of the profits of it. So that's one of the reasons why people like Andrew Yang say that universal basic income is just what you're due, because this data is actually extremely productive and it is part of you. So
Yeah.
anyway, all right, we're going to go get into the stuff, the articles. But actually, before we do that, I think Alec mentioned a couple weeks ago that he sent me a gift from China, and it finally came, and I have it right here, and I actually don't know what it is. So I'm going to open it here live on the show.
Can I give a quick preamble? So
Sure.
It's because I was really into AliExpress because there's so much cheap shit from China. So I spent, I think, $9 on this. So if you don't like it, I don't care. It's $9, whatever. It was worth the risk.
Okay.
There may be some problems with it because it's from China, and I'm happy to explain. But what do you think it is, Jared?
I thought that it was going to be some sort of a Zizek shirt. We'll see. Because one time for my birthday, Alec got me a Zizek cake. So I'm thinking that, all right, let's see what this is. It is, whoa. Oh, wait. Okay, I apologize for people having to hear this bag sound.
People who like ASMR are probably enjoying it.
That's true. Oh, here we go. This is wow. It is, in fact, a Zizek shirt. This is awesome.
Howling at the moon.
He's howling at the moon. This is so cool. Actually, I really like the fabric, too.
So one of the issues with AliExpress is everything is in Chinese sizes. So, for instance, like I know a person who's like a medium in American sizes, and they have to order like an extra large. So someone like me who wears an extra large has to wear like a quadruple or triple extra large. This seemed to be using the American sizes, so it might be way too small. But if it's not, I do expect you to wear it at some point on the podcast.
I will wear it. It looks like a good size just from eyeballing it. All right, guys, we're going to get into our first article. Today, I want to talk about, so recently it was announced that Taco Bell has their own Taco Bell hotel resort.
I think we just lost Jared's audio. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, technical difficulties. Anyway, so this is the Taco Bell Hotel and Resort in Palm Springs. It opens on August 8th, 2019. And it's actually, I think, only a small pop-up thing. It's 4 nights of, and this is from an article, it's, quote, they'll have Bell Hops, get it? Taco Bell branded robes, hot sauce packet pool floats and pillows, all the classic Taco Bell items you can dream of, and a salon that offers Taco Bell inspired manicures, fades and braids, and so much more. So there's also, so you can see this picture, like there's also a Taco Bell wedding that you can get. Apparently this has been a thing for a while. You can go to tacobellwedding.com. Here you can see it right here. It says marriage is on the menu. You'll live happily ever after, beginning at the Taco Bell flagship cantina in Vegas. So I was talking about this with my girlfriend last night, and I said, how many of the people do you think are going to go to this Taco Bell hotel resort ironically? And she said, and I said, I would imagine most people. And then she said, I don't know about that. I mean, in other countries, for example, in Vietnam, KFC is a high-scale restaurant, and people oftentimes equate fast food restaurants with the highest American values. So maybe I'm just being a snob. And I was like, damn, maybe I am the asshole. Maybe people won't go there ironically. People just really like Taco Bell. And this made me think about something greater that has been bothering me for a while, is that these days, maybe it is these days, maybe it's not, maybe it's always been like this, but you can't really draw a distinction between things that are straight-faced and just seemingly authentic and things that are ironic. Sometimes you can't even tell the difference between satire and reality these days. So, for example, if someone were to tell me that they were making a reality show about refugees competing in a coliseum for citizenship, I would not know if they were being sarcastic or not. For example, in the Pizza Hut recently had that hot dog crust menu item. If someone told me that was a joke, I would have believed them. That makes sense that would be a joke about just, excess and the grotesque levels that fast food will sometimes get to. But there are some other examples of this happening recently. So there's this mask that you can wear. Jay, can you put up the Bane mask? So you allows you to have private conversations in an office setting. Not that one. This one. You look like a freaking moron. And If someone sent this to me and didn't tell me the publication, I wouldn't know if it was The Onion or not, because is this a satirical remark on how self-absorbed and alienated we are, or is this an actual office tool? In this case, it's an actual office tool. Similarly, there's a show on TLC. Also, let's go to this other one. They now have horse blinders for people to keep them focused and not distracted in an office environment. Again, if you sent this to me saying it was from The Onion, I would believe you, but this is a real product that people are selling.
I would buy that.
Exactly.
It's also, these two things specifically, it's like all the problems with the open offices, so we have to invent these like obscene things to do it instead of just giving people, like, I want a cubicle is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Give us our cubicles back.
I guess my point is there seems to be no baseline for culture that we can all agree on. Enough of a baseline to where people can understand when something is a joke and when it's not, or when people are being sarcastic, or when something is supposed to be satire and when it's not. And I'm constantly running into this, and I constantly have to check myself thinking, oh, this is obviously satire. Oh, no, wait. Maybe some people are just authentically into this. And it's constantly disorienting and kind of weird.
I can speak from personal experience in that I unabashedly love Taco Bell. It's amazing. And at one time, my love of Taco Bell, as well as another writer, people accused us as like being secretly sponsored by them, which we weren't. Later, we were unrelated sponsored by them. But no, I just really fucking love Taco Bell. Lots of people in my life really love Taco Bell. In fact, my girlfriend picked up an AM Crunchwrap for me this morning so she could bring it home and I can eat it when she gets home. So I know some people who unironically, well, I don't know, we'll talk if it's ironic or not, who want to renew their vows at that Taco Bell place.
But there's a sense of irony, right?
Yeah, but like even in my love of Taco Bell, first of all, would I do that? The answer is probably. And maybe I'd like to tell myself it's ironic, but at some point it just becomes loving Taco Bell.
Right, but there are Taco Bells. There are
hashtag
Taco Bell
boss.
restaurants in Palm Springs. You don't need to go to a Taco Bell resort unless you're just that much of a fan.
I mean, I'm a pretty big fan. There's
I love
there's
Taco
a Taco Bell near me that is doing a karaoke night, and I, ironically or unironically, may or may not go this weekend.
Okay.
So I'm interested in this from a business perspective. I think it's a great example of experiential marketing, and it's a huge brand play that does great things for Taco Bell's PR and engagement. So I think these sorts of things are kind of silly, but if you're a huge Taco Bell fan, I can't imagine anything better. Like for me, I would love it if there was like a Harry Potter hotel or something like that.
Well, there's Harry Potter World at Disney.
I know. I haven't been yet. It's at Universal Studios.
Oh, you could drink butterbeer.
I know. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Another kind of interesting thing is I'm actually working on a script, as you know, Jared, about advertising. And I was reading this article from 2003 about ironic marketing, because I think in my mind it's kind of new, but it's not. We talk in the script about Sprite commercials where, what's his name? Grant Hill's a basketball player who kind of counts his money as, he doesn't count his money, but he talks about how much money he's getting paid to hawk Sprite. And it's very ironic and self-aware and all that stuff. And the person who's writing this article in the Harvard Business Review in 2003 says that ironic marketing, he claims it's getting old, and also that it's had the weird effect of non-ironic advertisement being read ironically and ironic advertisement being read unironically. Now, I'm not fully sure I understand that, but I was watching a very old commercial in my research where essentially like a knockoff, like legally safe knockoff version of Spock beams into a kitchen and sells dishwasher something or other. And it's really campy and lame and stupid. But I was like, if this is an ironic play, maybe I'm kind of into it, but I couldn't tell. And I think that moment is what that author was talking about.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's something there. All right, so Surbhi, to test my thesis that there is no cultural baseline to where we can tell if something is a joke or not, I actually have a couple of things that I want to test on you, and I want you to tell me if this is real or if it's fake.
Why do I have to do it? How come you're not doing it with Alec?
Because Alec already knows.
I already know. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we've talked about this before. I know. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. But this first one...
No, it's fine.
This first one is a puppet sex rental company. So we're going to call the number right now. This is a live call. Jacob, let's call. It's 1-800-GET-FELT. And I want you to listen to the Surbhi and tell me if this is a real service or not.
Okay.
Thank you for calling. For quality of service, this call may be recorded.
Thank you for calling 1-800-GET-FELT. Your ticket to Puppet Pleasureland. Please listen carefully to the following. The Felt Fetish Services have recently changed. Feeling lonely? To chat with a live puppet who's ready to play, press 1. Planning a bachelor party? Press 2 to learn more about our exclusive adult puppet party packages. Feeling dirty? Our topless maids can help you come clean. Press 3 now for details. For all other specialty puppet services, press 4 now.
All right, let's cut it. Cut the call. All right, Surbhi, real or fake?
That's real. I think it's real, and I think it's real because people have really interesting sexual interests. So I feel like there's like something out there for everyone. So I'm going to say it's real.
I just want to say, Surbhi, your reaction was amazing.
This is why, like, in work calls, I always have my camera off because I'm way too expressive.
So it's actually fake. This is a marketing ploy for a year-old Melissa McCarthy movie called, oh, damn it, what was it called? Happy Time Murders, yeah. And so I saw on a van, there was a van that had this number on it, and it said puppet sexual pleasures. It had like these scantily clad puppets on it, and it was actually not clear to me that this was a joke at first. I called the number, it seemed legit, and then I later found out doing some searching that this is just a viral marketing campaign. But I don't think the campaign went very far. All right.
But I will say, even if it's fake, it's going to be real in 5 years. Because that's the other thing is that...
Yeah.
Yeah. Like The Onion declaring Gillette, like, screw it, we're doing 5 razors. And then a couple years later, the Mach 5 comes out.
Or when Chappelle Show did a sketch about trading spouses and then Wife Swap became a real show a couple of years later. At the time, it was a complete satire that reality TV is getting ridiculous, but it'll never get this ridiculous. And then reality TV said, hold my beer. So, all right, I have one more for you. See if this is real or fake. So Pilsner. Pilsner is a beer made using human urine. The urine is collected from a music festival in Denmark, and the beer is described as light-bodied, softly carbonated with flavors of grass, brown bread, and hay, and it has a 3.05 out of 5 on ratebeer.com. Is this real or fake?
That's fake.
No, it's real.
No, it's not.
Yes,
what?
It is. It's a real beer.
Do you want
to do one more?
They're very eco-friendly. You gotta reuse all the waste.
Do you want to do one more, Surbhi?
Yeah.
All right. This one is ClippyCon. ClippyCon is a convention that gathers fans of the Microsoft Word assistant Clippy from the 90s. It happens every summer in Philadelphia and attracts over 10,000 fans. It was founded by a high school computer science teacher who loved the character, and they have a Clippy costume contest every year. Is this real or fake?
That's fake.
I think that's real.
Oh, you don't know? It's fake. I made that up.
Damn
it. I like Clippy. You had me until you said 10,000 people. If you had said like 500 people show up, I would have been like, that's real.
Yeah, maybe I did that a little bit too high. So, yeah, reality, satire, ironic. There's no line. All the lines are blurred these days. I'm constantly confused. So that's my spiel. Let's go on to Surbhi's thing. So we're going to be talking about Yelp. Tell me what's going on with Yelp, Surbhi.
So a few years ago, there was this restaurant owner who lives in the Bay Area in California, and he offered 25% off pizzas in exchange for a 1-star Yelp review. So he started doing this after he found that his 5-star reviews were disappearing because he had declined Yelp's proposal to buy advertisements on the site. So after he was getting hit by these like negative reviews catapulting to the top, not the reviews that he requested, but just original reviews, he paid for the advertisements. And as soon as he canceled them, he noticed that his rating plummeted again. So he accused Yelp of extortion. And this article is very amusing and it's very well written. And I encourage all of you to read it. It's on thehustle.co. And the battle that commences between Yelp and this restaurant owner is hilarious. So I was interested in this story because I don't like these review sites. I think that companies can pay money and have negative reviews removed. For example, Glassdoor. Are either of you familiar with Glassdoor?
Yeah, you can look up what companies suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so it's like Rotten Tomatoes for companies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or like a Yelp for companies, or like Rotten Tomatoes for companies, things like that. So it's basically you get to review employers. And I wrote a negative review for a startup I worked for, and it was up there for a while. And then a friend of mine interviewed at the company, and I was like, oh, well, you could look at my review on Glassdoor. Like it's very detailed. And she's like, oh, there are no negative reviews about the organization, which was strange because I know that there were like 10 negative reviews, but they were all gone. So I think that the organization paid Glassdoor to remove them. So this restaurant owner who basically reclaims his power from Yelp and review sites is my hero, because I feel like it is sort of like extortion, and it is a method to control a narrative and to control voices in the industry. So I was very excited.
I think as far as the extortion, I had a dentist who was very forthcoming with me about a lot of things, but she was essentially like, oh yeah, these people came in the other day and they said they weren't from Yelp. They were from a marketing agency who essentially said, listen, it'd be a shame if you got a bunch of negative reviews about your dental practice. But if you pay us, we can not only make sure that doesn't happen, but like any future ones that happen. So, I think it creates like a weird asymmetry. All reviews is that companies with money can probably pay to handle it, whether they're create fake positive reviews, somehow remove negative reviews. Like if you leave like on TripAdvisor negative review, the company will reach out and offer you either a refund or a gift card or something like that. But if you're a small business who doesn't have the resources, you're way more likely to get screwed over by that. The other thing is, as someone who used to work in the service industry as a teenager, I really hate the logic that the customer is always right. I feel like we're always wrong. And I feel like sites like Yelp only reinforce that logic.
Well, hold on. How is it that he's reclaiming power from Yelp? That's what I'm not clear on.
So I didn't do a great job explaining it. So after this had happened in Yelp, he felt that Yelp was manipulating the reviews. He asked for 1-star reviews. So essentially every review on his profile is a negative review. And he started to get quite a bit of press as a result of this. His restaurant was really well known in the community. He basically he's extremely successful now. I think he sells private cooking lessons for like $2,000 a session. So that's what I mean by he reclaimed power. He took that like fear of having negative reviews away, and he just embraced it.
Well, he's lucky that he got the press, and he's also lucky that he has a reputation within the community, because I imagine that people who are looking to seek out a new restaurant and see all those 1-star reviews, I mean, Yelp still has the power in that situation because they'll probably stay away from it. Because I don't think anybody goes like, oh, this is weird, there are only negative reviews, it must be good. The thing that's gross to me is that Yelp still has most of the power. But is he not planning on suing for extortion?
He didn't. No. I think Yelp threatened him, and he essentially just sort of laughed at them and like wrote an entry on his personal blog about it. But they're just sort of at a stalemate. Nothing's been done.
They'll always deny it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't know what's actually happening with it. Oftentimes, like, people have accused Yelp of, if you pay for advertising, it'll help you in other ways outside the advertising. And I'm pretty sure that they always deny that. And whether or not they're doing it doesn't matter, because they have an army of like lawyers and developers to hide whatever they're actually doing.
It's that Bryce Dallas Howard episode of Black Mirror, I guess, has been true for years, except with restaurants rather than people.
Yeah. There was it wasn't Yelp. There was a great article I read a few years ago about there were TripAdvisor reviews of national parks and just the petty shit people complain about when it comes to that. They're like, there were too many flies, or like, the trail was muddy and I couldn't go across it, like 1 star. And, this is just, oh God, I hate everyone. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, power to that guy. I don't know. I mean, if you can make a case of extortion, I don't understand why there isn't a lawsuit going against these companies.
Because they're probably denying it, and he probably doesn't have a lot of proof.
Yeah, he probably doesn't have any evidence about it. And I mean, I think a lot of, in the article, there are a few comments from other restaurant owners, I believe, where they say that they're afraid to go against Yelp, that they feel that their business would be in jeopardy. So I think that probably prevents people from suing for extortion.
Yeah, there's got to be a rich lawyer out there who wants a project that he thinks will do good for the world that would take something like this on. I imagine there has to be.
Yeah.
Well, if there are any lawyers out there listening, you have my support.
Yeah. All right, Alec, bring us to your second favorite topic in the world, anti-vaxxers.
So anti-vaxxers, for anyone who listens to other podcasts, they might know sometimes on weekends I'll just go down weird dark places where I'll play like a video game, and on my other monitor have weird conspiracy shit. So for a while I was watching flat earth videos like dozens of hours, and I've a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, started watching like anti-vaxxer documentaries. So suffice to say, I've been on the anti-vaxxer beat. In the news, there's some anti-vaxxer news. So after 558 cases in New York alone of the measles, New York City, and 266 cases in Rockland County, which is in New York State, New York will no longer allow religious vaccine exemptions for school-aged kids. I think amount of measles cases in the nation has been more than any amount in decades. And obviously to blame in this case are anti-vaxxers. What is your, Surbhi and Jared, what was your experience with the anti-vaxxer world?
I don't have any personal experience with anti-vaxxers. I obviously think they're insane and absurd and ridiculous. I'm all for vaccines. In fact, I've been vaccinated for MMR at least 6 times because my health organization keeps losing my records. So they just we'll just stick you again.
Wow.
And so does every successive time you feel like you have more autism in you or less?
Weigh in, listeners.
I've never met an anti-vaxxer, I don't think.
What's interesting is that I don't think I know any directly, but one of the most alarming things to me is I'll talk to oftentimes family members or just other kind of adults, like people with kids, and they're not anti-vaxxers, but they'll say things that now that I've been researching this, I realize are anti-vaxxer talking points that they probably heard somebody else say. So for instance, a person I was talking to who has multiple children, who I think have most of their vaccinations, is saying like, oh, I'm not anti-vaccine, but they get so many at once. Like, I just want to space them out. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there is something wrong with that because like, if every year you don't go vaccinate against the measles is another year that you could possibly contract it, or polio, or any of these other diseases. Now, measles is terrible, but probably the least terrible when compared to, say, polio. But so you hear stuff like that. You hear other things of like, well, sometimes they don't test them fully. So, I want to be a little bit cautious about when a new vaccine comes on the market. Also not true. So it's just interesting, the sort of like effectiveness that anti-vax propaganda has spread to like regular parents who like science and listen to their pediatricians. And there was a great article I read from Anna Merlan. She travels. The article's called, if you want to Google it, "Everything I Learned While Getting Kicked Out of America's Biggest Anti-Vaccine Conference." So the conference is called Autism One, and
Autism ONE or WON?
No, ONE one. Okay. The number one.
I thought it was the W.
Autism is the craziest one because a lot of times anti-vaxxer claims are really hard to pull apart from actual science because they have doctors saying them. But every time it comes to autism, it all comes back to this guy, Andrew Wakefield, who was a doctor, is important, who got paid by a lawyer or a legal group who was suing pharmaceutical companies about vaccines, did a study with like 12 kids, and I think recruited the ones specifically that, had shit going on with them. And claimed there was a link between autism and vaccines. That article was retracted because obviously when you're paid to do a thing and then choose 12 kids based on ones that are already messed up, things are going to happen, things that aren't great. He lost his medical license, so he's no longer a doctor. Still, he was a speaker at Autism One as well as most of these conferences.
And does he deny that he picked out people solely to... I mean, does he deny that he was paid?
I'm not sure really, but so the people I've been sort of listening, I haven't listened to anything from him. I spent like an hour watching videos from Del Bigtree, who's a specific anti-vaxxer, who was a producer on a show about doctors, and then created a documentary with Andrew Wakefield where they got a CDC whistleblower. That whistleblower didn't know he was being recorded and has since been like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like everything I said was taken out. There was some safety studies being done, and there was like some preliminary results that he was talking to Del Bigtree about. And those preliminary results are preliminary because they later figured out that no, the vaccines are safe. But they made a whole documentary about this one phone call that the guy didn't know was happening. So Del Bigtree did that with Andrew Wakefield. But to your question, I'm not sure. But I think the anti-vax community would probably say like, the millions of dollars at the hands of the pharmaceutical companies is trying to silence these people, and it's a smear campaign and blah blah blah.
Would you consider would you consider being skeptical about a flu shot also anti-vaxxer sentiments?
Because it depends, right? So I would say like 4 years ago I thought to myself, I don't really see the point of getting a flu vaccine. I'm a healthy adult.
Well, it's not a vaccine. Wait, is it a vaccine? What exactly is the definition of vaccine? So, I mean, if you get a vaccine doesn't necessarily mean you can never get it.
Correct. A lot of vaccines have, let's say, ballpark numbers, 90%, 95% efficacy. I think some maybe 80%. I think the flu vaccine might even be lower. But the thing is that the way, herd immunity is the idea. So hold on, let me answer your original question, which is to say, so a vaccine, to define it, is just generally introducing the bacteria, virus, etc., in your body, so your body learns to fight an immunity. Modern vaccines will put, I forget the exact words, but other things in there that kind of hype up your immune system. So like it attacks it extra good and learns how to create the antibodies extra well. One of those is aluminum in safe amounts. There's another compound called thimerosal, which is derived from mercury, also used in very safe quantities, all been tested. So the flu vaccine, I'd say 4 years ago, I'm a young, healthy adult, I don't understand. And then people would be on my case. It's like, well, you could get the flu and you're fine, but you might give it to an infant or an old person who could die from it. But I've since become aware that lots of people in the world can't get vaccinated for the flu. People with certain immune disorders, people with cancer or with bone marrow transplants. So these are people who would probably die if they got the flu. And let's say the flu vaccine, I don't know the exact number, but let's say it's 70%, right? Sure, you could still get the flu and that would suck, but on a population level, the ability for the flu to travel amongst people essentially can go down to zero or close to zero, so that sure, if everyone has the flu, you still have a 30% chance of getting it, but because everyone has a 70% chance of not getting the flu, everyone's pretty much fine, including those people who can't get vaccinated. So I'm not saying people who don't get the flu vaccine aren't anti-vaxxers, but I think they should do it to possibly protect like a friend or family member that can't.
Okay, so with the flu vaccine, we recognize, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I'm actually just curious about this because I don't know as much as you do about it, but with the flu vaccine, we still recognize that there is a chance you can get the flu from the vaccine, whether it's 90%, 70%, unlikely, whatever. But with regular vaccines or other vaccines, let's say polio, let's say any of those other ones, is there even a consensus among the scientific community that there is a risk of blank? Like, what is the blank? Is it autism? Because from what I have heard, that's just a myth.
Yeah, so autism is 100% a myth. So there's been a lot of studies about autism, specifically after the Andrew Wakefield thing. Every single study has said that there is no link, or I should say every single credible study. So none of that. There's also a database where doctors can report, let's say you got a vaccine and the next day you got like a really bad fever and maybe developed some complications. That can all be reported. It's called VEARS, vaccine something reporting system. So from what I understand is that people are having shit happen to them all the time, right? Like you could get cancer, you could get diagnosed with cancer tomorrow, you could have a heart attack tomorrow, there's all these things. So what happens in this database, which isn't a terrible idea, is you have a kid who has a vaccine and literally 5 days later they have, I'm just going to use the example of leukemia. Now, people might say, oh my God, that vaccine caused leukemia, but the studies that look at the general incidences of people getting all these different disorders or diseases versus the sort of timing of vaccines has found no link to that. I do think that there might be cases, and I think the cases are one in a billion maybe, of actual things happening in certain vaccines. Usually those vaccines are reformulated. But I think overall, I haven't heard anything about that, about flu vaccines. 99.99% of the things you'll hear anti-vaxxers say that vaccines can cause are just complete bullshit. Any extremely rare case, let's say to the polio vaccine, is greatly outweighed by the fact that millions of people aren't getting measles. Even measles, which is not a very fatal disease. Early in the 1900s, tens of thousands of people were dying a year from it. Tens of thousands more were getting hospitalized for that, causing lots of sort of economic losses. Obviously, nobody wants to see their child hospitalized. So most of the concerns are bogus. Now, like the flu vaccine, for instance, if you have an egg allergy, if you get it, you're going to have a bad time. But they have one because the vaccine is grown in like an egg. The flu virus is literally cultivated in like an egg embryo. So that if you have an egg allergy, not good. However, there's ones that aren't cultivated in that way. You can ask for, I think it's the hypoallergenic one.
So most anti-vaxxers, do they actually, the ones that are hardcore, not the ones that maybe have just fallen victim to some miscellaneous concerns that they were not aware came from an anti-vaxxer sentiment, but the hardcore ones, do they think that the government is deliberately poisoning them?
Yes.
Or do they think that they just don't know what the fuck they're doing, and I don't want an incompetent government putting vaccines in me?
They think it's the pharmaceutical companies deliberately sickening them, and the government's kind of in on it. Obviously, what is true is that there's a revolving door of like pharma execs and the FDA and all that good stuff, not denying any of that. But it's essentially a conspiracy to keep us sick and needing more drugs. And on another level, there's kind of this idea that, and this is true, so essentially Americans are less healthy than ever before. We got all these chronic diseases, and actual health researchers are looking at this, and it's like a very complicated system of factors like declining healthcare quality, our crappy diets, pollutants, things like exposure to, let's say, BPA or other things like that. But instead, they are like, oh yeah, but it's mostly the vaccines. Vaccines maybe, and the other stuff is involved too. But this is there. And then when you're chronically sick, you need more drugs. Now, what doesn't make sense is that, like, let's say HPV, which causes 5% of cancer, I think 5% of cancers, causing ovarian cancer. I'm pretty sure chemotherapy makes pharmaceutical companies way more money than whatever that vaccine cost.
Gotcha. All right, we're going to move on. So next thing I wanted to bring up was comedy dying at the box office. Jacob, let's put up that graph. So this is a graph, so basically there have been recently a series of just box office catastrophes surrounding comedy. Late Night starring Mindy Kaling, MIB International starring Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson. Both of those movies tanked. Long Shot starring Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron tanked. Palms with Diane Keaton tanked. Booksmart also disappointed. It's struggling to hit 20 million. If you look at this graph, in the last 9 years, the revenue brought in by comedies has dropped from 2.5 billion to 1 billion. So that's over a drop in $1.5 billion, more than 50%. And so the Hollywood Reporter recently had an article about this, and they pointed to a couple of possible things. One of which is the possibility that comedy just sucks. One of the things they say is that all the talented writers are going to TV because there's more money in TV. There's also the thing that that studios are less interested in making comedies, especially risky comedies, because comedy does not translate overseas. And nowadays the US is just another market. It's not even the one that they're primarily concerned with because these things make so much money in China. Other causes that they point to are Netflix. Perhaps people just, when there's so much content available, they'll just sit at home and watch Netflix comedies. Why go to the theater? There's also the possibility of apps. You know, people are getting their comedy from YouTube or TikTok or whatever. But I want to ask you guys, what was the last comedy you remember seeing in the theater? Do you remember seeing more theaters 10?
Surbhi?
Sorry, the audio cut out for a second, so I wasn't sure if Jared was finished. So I can't remember the last comedy I've seen in a theater or that I've like rented or streamed. If I do watch a comedy, it's on HBO or something like that.
Were you ever into the Apatow era films? Were you into the 40-Year-Old Virgin? Were you into? Because that's the last time I remember that I was really engaged and excited about comedy.
No, I didn't watch any of that.
What about you, Alec?
I don't see a lot of movies, so I don't even remember. I think most of my comedy consumption comes in TV.
But did you see the 40-Year-Old Virgin in theaters?
No.
What about Superbad?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I saw. I mean, I remember seeing Clerks 2 in theaters.
Yeah. And when was the last time you think you saw a comedy in theaters?
Easily. Oh, you know what? I think I know what it was. Sex Tape. It was god awful, but there's a great line.
That's so long ago.
Yeah.
Wait.
What is that? 3-4 years old?
Wait, who's in that?
Is it Sudeikis?
Oh, I'm thinking of a different movie. Oh, I'm thinking of Jack and Miri Make a Porno. The
No,
Kevin
I saw
Smith
that
movie.
in theaters too. Sex Tape is who's in it? Yeah, Jason Segel, who I confused with the other guy, and Cameron Diaz.
I always get Sudeikis and Segel confused.
Yeah. There is a really great line in that where a kid is like, why do we keep having these days? And it's like this existential crisis of a small child, and it's great. The rest of the movie is terrible. And so I would say most movie comedies are terrible in my mind. But there's like so much great stuff on TV and elsewhere that I don't think like comedy's dying. I think just comedy in movies for a variety of reasons is dying.
We got a couple on the live stream. Someone said 21 Jump Street. That movie's awesome. I saw that movie. But I mean, even then, that's like almost like maybe 7 years ago or something like that. A lot of people in the comments are mentioning Marvel movies. I mean, those are action comedies and they're funny. They're probably funnier than a lot of these movies. But the ones that are really tanking, that has been a sharp change in the last 10 years, are these ones that are just strictly comedies with strictly comedians, like Mindy Kaling, like Seth Rogen, stuff like that.
So I wonder if this happens because I wonder if it's a result of foreign investment in the film industry. So Jared, you mentioned in the article there was discussion that these films don't translate well in foreign markets, but I wonder if it goes beyond that. It's the people who are funding these films are not interested in these sorts of comedies, so the studios stay away from them.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I can also see. My hypothesis is a lot of comedy is culturally specific.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, when the Avengers are defeating whoever, pretty universal. There's a bad guy, wants to kill everyone, fine. But I imagine it doesn't translate. So I wonder if they're essentially, I don't even want to say safer movies, but like comedies that are scrubbed clean of any cultural context that would actually make it funny so that it can be as viewable in China as it is in America.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think this is such a... Oh, sorry. Please continue.
Oh, the one thing I was thinking is that I always thought that comedy would be a little bit more resilient to things like this because comedy, like horror, is something that's more effective when you're in a theater, in a community. You know, when you're in a horror movie setting, I think things get a lot more tense when there are a lot of people that are just as scared as you are. And I would say the same thing about, I have very memorable experiences of seeing those Apatow movies or like the tail end of American Pie movies in my youth, and that it was always funnier with an audience. And so I am a bit surprised that it's dying like this because I think that you would think that, at least for me, I would rather see a comedy in a theater than I would sitting at home watching Netflix. I don't tend to laugh as much when it's just me or just me and one other person.
Do you think also a problem is, like, the new Men in Black movie sucked? I haven't seen it. Maybe it's great. My suspicion is it's not great, and it's just that they're making shitty movies. And this is why.
That's maybe a bad example to point to, but like Late Night with Mindy Kaling is an original film. Long Shot with Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron is also an original film. Palms with Diane Keaton is also an original film. So with Men in Black International, sure, but even these low-budget movies that plan to only make a pretty low return are still not able to hit their numbers.
Yeah.
So this is super interesting, and I don't know anything about the history of film, but Jared, I know that you studied film in college, so I'm wondering whether there are any generational trends or phases that come and go. Because, for example, when I was growing up, I remember there were so many romantic comedies, and in the 80s there were so many coming-of-age teen films. So is this like a phase that we're going through? Because now I see a lot of sci-fi fantasy, which I don't remember seeing as much when I was growing up.
Yeah, it is interesting. That's another thing I think about is that when I was in high school and early college, the Apatow era was a new, fresh voice in comedy. It was largely improv-based. It was a lot raunchier than other comedies. And that was the aesthetic that was new and fresh to us, and that would make us go to the theater. But these days, I can't really think of anything unique in comedies other than the Marvel movies, which is just mixing comedy with action. But in terms of just pure comedy, I can't really think of anything that's really pushed the boundaries or brought us to a new, interesting era that would make me go to the theater. Nicholas Allen in the chat just mentioned Shaun of the Dead, which is still over 10 years old, maybe even over 15 years old. But yeah, Edgar Wright, even his movies struggle. Even Will Ferrell is struggling to get movies made. By the way, one of our writers, AJ, said that his most recent movie, Holmes and Watson, he said it's one of the worst movies he's ever seen, and he's a huge Will Ferrell fan. But yeah, Edgar Wright is one of the more skilled filmmakers out there living today, and it's even hard for him to get a comedy made because his name doesn't sell tickets. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Chris Hemsworth is a huge star. His name doesn't sell tickets either.
Yeah. Do you think, conversely, though, TV comedy is better than it's ever been? Because I really can't think... There's a couple of like timeless great comedy TV shows, one of which is Seinfeld, but there's so much good comedy on TV now. I even made a list. So Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Archer. This was canceled, but Vice Principal's amazing, and Eastbound and Down before it, even better. People are really into Bo Burnham. I guess that's YouTube. And I guess this is still, a few years old at this point, but like The Office, watch it every night. I don't know. I think those shows are so good, and I don't think I can really go back in the past and find stuff like that.
I mean, there was The Simpsons when I was a kid. There was Married with Children. There were all these things. I mean, I think that there's more stuff out there today, but I think that The Simpsons was probably just as funny, at least in its prime. It was just as funny as Archer or South Park or any of that stuff. So I would say maybe there are just more options, but I don't know if necessarily the options are unilaterally funnier than they were 10 years ago. Although I like all those shows that you mentioned.
Are fewer people just going to the cinema to see films? Because perhaps it has nothing to do with comedy. It's just... Pardon?
I was going to say not Marvel movies. People are still going in troves.
Yeah, that's true. I just wonder if it's not so much about comedy. It's just if fewer people are going and they only go to, say, a handful of movies a year, maybe they want to see the Marvel movie, or maybe they want to see the ones that will be nominated for awards.
Yeah, there's a good point there. If people are only attracted to the theater because something is a cultural event, it's hard to make a cultural event out of a comedy unless you've got a breakout comedy star that maybe Seth Rogen was 10 years ago. But as far as I know, I can't really think of any breakout comedy stars that really demand that you go sit in the theater and attend this quote-unquote event. But
in any case, it makes me sad. I like comedies. Like, I like things that transport me out of my real life and make me laugh. And it's fun to be in a room full of people who are laughing.
Yeah, me too. All right, we're running short on time, so let's go on to Surbhi's next thing, online dating.
Okay, so someone sent me this Washington Post page, and it's basically takes leading literary men and puts them up on Tinder. So this is from the website. We revisited 4 classic romantic heroes through the ultimate modern day lens, how they might present and fare on Tinder. So you can go through this website and swipe left or right and read their dating profiles. And some of the descriptions made me laugh because it's funny how they distill their, like, the events that occur in the book. And yeah, exactly. So this one is from Pride and Prejudice. It's Mr. Darcy. And I think it's really funny how we just look at ourselves at our most basic levels. And I got to thinking about how we present ourselves on profiles and on online dating. And what do we think is the most important thing? What do we think is most attractive to other people? So have either of you done online dating?
Well, you know that I have. You even brought it up in a previous podcast that you found me on one of them.
No, podcast. We weren't recording. It was just it was before.
Oh, really? Okay, maybe you didn't bring it up, but I brought it up.
Now the secret's out.
Now the secret's out.
Once upon a time, this was a few years ago, Jared and I were both on Coffee Meets Bagel, and I saw him, and I bought him. Like, I used my points to buy Jared, and I swiped right, and then he swiped right, and then I think we exchanged like 2 sentences, and I kept trying to make the conversation go on, and Jared just stopped responding to me.
Oh. Well, it's probably because I have your actual phone number.
I know, but it's not the same. Like, I wanted to, like, I don't know, message you on the app. But anyway, so Jared is my most famous connection. My other famous connection is Sang Jun from Silicon Valley. He and I connected, but we didn't end up going out.
That's an actor in Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
Which character?
He's the one from China.
Oh, John. Oh, fuck. His name's John Yang or something like that.
Could be, yeah.
Anyway, love that character.
He's great.
To answer your question, I have never been. I met my girlfriend in college. Never been on any site. And I'm morbidly fascinated by it. And I'm horrified if I'm ever single again that I have to go online dating.
Yeah, you should really try to make this one work with your college sweetheart, because you do not want to do online dating.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's a terrible world out there.
It's so rough. Anyway, yeah. So, I mean, is there anything particular about your experience you wanted to bring up? Oh, you said about how you present yourself.
How we present ourselves. Yeah.
It's so like, hard.
It's hard, and it's hard to like think about like what you want to say. And with online dating, I feel like it dehumanizes us, and we just look at each other in terms of a few pictures and a few sentences. So you really have to like do quite a bit of introspection to see what is interesting, what do I want somebody to know about me, and what are the best pictures to take. So I don't know, I find online dating a great way to expose yourself to other people that you wouldn't normally meet in your day-to-day life, especially when you graduate from college. And maybe you don't work in a big organization. It's hard to meet people. So I do think that online dating has quite a bit of value, but I've found that I've become more superficial in terms of like when I'm interested in somebody, like, oh, that's a weird sentence, or like, oh, that's a weird description, like I don't want to get to know him, which is not normally what I would do. But because you have this endless number of profiles that you can go through, it's easy to stop looking at people as people and just look at them as a description and a picture.
Well, the fact that you're even reading the description, I think, makes you slightly less superficial than most people on the apps. But yeah, it's disheartening because you're constantly asking yourself, how ought I present myself? First of all, I don't think there's necessarily an objective way that I would present myself if I wasn't worried about how people were consuming that profile. I don't even know how to translate myself into some sort of online dating digital realm, but you end up trying to take pictures that you think people want, and you try to highlight elements of your personality that you think people will react well to. And I think what's worse is you don't really get any feedback in the sense that like it's either working or it's not working, but you don't know why. You don't know if it's because of your pictures. You don't know if it's because you're saying something uncouth in your description. You don't know if you're saying that you like things that are just really not cool. You just have no idea, and you're constantly asking yourself, why aren't more people matching with me? And you're constantly second guessing yourself, and you're constantly having to try and reform yourself, not only your digital self, but sometimes even your real life self. It's just a constant 24/7 nightmare.
You know, so I used to work for a bunch of therapists, and an interesting thing would happen is that essentially people seeing their therapist would have to kind of tell them how to present themselves, or at least suggest, right? Because you don't want to be like you're coming off like a total creeper. But for a therapist who sees lots of different kinds of people every day, like they have a really good sense of like what is quote unquote normal. So especially like if a patient is like socially awkward, or maybe doesn't have like a good sense of like how they're presenting themselves to the world, they go in there and be like, oh, well, you know, maybe the trouble you're having is you need to do this or that. So it's just interesting to know that people need like a professional in that sense to tell them. I think other people could also tell them, but like who else, which one of your friends is going to be like, dude, you look like shit in your profile picture. You need to change it.
That would be me. I would do that.
Yeah,
and
you would.
I've thought about doing this as like a pro bono service. Like send me your dating profiles. I'll rewrite your descriptions and I'll help you with your pictures.
Yeah. I mean, I would always hear these stories from friends of mine who were not particularly good looking, who they had these lines that just worked all the time. So for example, my friend claims that the line, hey, you want to get some $30 ravioli, works for him all the time. Just the idea of expensive ravioli, just it immediately gets people to respond. Or there's all these like one-liners or stuff like that of course, if I tried, would never work. It's just, it's bad. We haven't even talked about what it's like actually meeting these people. Oh, thank you, Cheyenne. Honestly, Jared, you and a pic of your dog would be fine. I mean, that's what it was. Was it not? Was it not, Surbhi? It was not. Woody was in the photo.
Picture.
It communicates who you are. The only thing you care about is your dog, and also movies.
Well, maybe oversimplifying it,
too.
But
like you were sitting, I think, like on this grassy knoll, and there was like a tree behind you, and there was some wind, and it like blew up your hair, and you were looking off in the distance, and Woody was here. I was like, swipe right so hard.
Well, how many people have you met off Coffee Meets Bagel?
Not that many, mostly because I'm really quite picky. You and I have talked about this at length. First of all, I'm not on online dating or not doing anything like that. But when I was very picky with people. Like if they couldn't hold a conversation like over messages and things like that, I would lose interest quite quickly. But meeting them is always like very challenging. And I'm pretty comfortable meeting new people, so it's not really hard for me to keep a conversation going. But what's interesting is when I feel like they weren't the people that I was communicating with. So I'm like, you had your friend write those messages, or you had somebody else help you with that.
Their therapist, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. It's it's rough out there. I don't know what to say.
We had I'll keep the details vague, but we had a patron who was talking about their online dating experience after the whole incel thing. And they essentially said there's periods of their life where they've been much thinner and much heavier. Kind of like a cycle goes back and forth. And their problem was when they were thinner, the only people they would meet is douchebags. And the person that they met now is great, but they met them when they were larger because, whatever.
But yeah, a male or female patron?
I think it's a female patron. But I've had this experience with coworkers, and I think I mentioned this before. they're like pretty conventionally attractive, but all they meet is essentially douchebags. I think they're happily in relationships now, but like the struggle is real for everyone.
Yeah, I don't miss it at all. All right, guys, we're running way long. Thank you, everybody, for being patient with our technical difficulties. Hopefully, we're going to get everything down pat so that next time we do this, everything will go smoothly. We are going to release the RSS feed for this podcast in 2 weeks, so not this upcoming Saturday, but the next Saturday. So thanks everyone who's been sending us emails and voicemails, telling us about what you like about the show, what you don't like. You can continue to do so by sending us an email at info@wisecrack.co, or you can hit up our movie podcast inbox, movies@wisecrack.co. I want to thank Alec and Surbhi for joining me. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, and quick shout out to Henry Wyatt. Thanks for donating some amount of money and some other currency I don't understand, but the message is, love your channel, especially videos on BoJack. Hope one day we'll get video on Twin Peaks: The Return. Unfortunately, I don't think we will, but...
Yeah, Henry... Sorry, it was Henry?
Yeah.
Henry, that's my favorite thing ever, and I just don't like thinking critically about it. It's really just a very spiritual experience for me. I just watch it and my brain turns off, and I almost like don't want to ruin it for myself, if that makes sense. But Twin Peaks: The Return is the greatest thing ever. I've got shirts, I've got keychains, I've got coffee mugs. I'm into Twin Peaks. Anyway, where can we find you on the internet, Alec?
I'm on Twitter at @WisecrackAlec.
And Surbhi, do you want anyone to find you on the internet?
Absolutely not.
All right. We'll all just have to wait for Surbhi's mukbang debut, which I've been promised is going to happen.
I'll make a Twitter. And people can tweet me.
Okay, cool. All right, signing off, guys. Thanks so much for your patience, and thanks so much for listening. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.